Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is CMG TALK. This is Catherine Gallagher. I hope you've had a great weekend and your Sunday has been going well. So today I've said I would come on Sunday, and somebody said to me, "Why do you always come on so early?" So I thought I'll leave it a bit later. I was talking to it was a young child, actually. I happened to be out, and there was a young child who was blethering to me. And they were talking about, we were in a bookstore, in case you're wondering what I was doing. I was in a bookstore and I was looking at some books, and I happened to look over at a book, and this young child said, I like that book. And I said, "Oh, is it a good book?" And their parent had said, "Oh, they've read it a lot." And I said, "All right, okay." And I said, "Well, what's good about it?" And they started telling me. And it was quite delightful, right, to hear them talking about the story behind, right, and telling me why the book would be a good read for me. And what they're really doing is giving me an insight into their view, their vision, their values, the importance, how they connected to it, and what they've taken from it. And their mum was kind of, because they told me there was their mum was kind of looking at me as if to say, "I'm really sorry. You're probably having to put up with this." And I was looking, going, "No, actually, I'm really enjoying listening." So they told me about the book, and they started talking about the adventures on the book, and what it meant to them, and about bravery, and about moving on, keeping going, not giving up, and then they talked about kindness, and about what it felt to be loved and liked, and what it was, how it made them sad, about when things didn't work out. And they were talking about all these different stories. And then they said to me, "You probably don't want to know the ending, but it's okay. They get saved at the end and it's all okay. So don't feel sad. It all works out." And I went, "Okay." And the mum said, "Oh, well, you might not want to buy it then, now you know the ending." And I said, "Well, I was thinking of getting it for, this child for a present." And I said, "Well, I think they might still like to hear about it." I said, "But I might not tell them the ending, because sometimes the suspense, sometimes it's good to just wait and see." And the wee child said, "Oh no, I don't think so. If I'd known the ending right up front, it would have saved me a lot of stress." I had to laugh. I had to laugh with their honesty. I think they kept saying, the mum said, they kept asking, "Is it going to be okay? Is it going to be okay?" Because they couldn't take the stress. And I said, was it quite stressful? And they said, "Yes." And the mum said, "I didn't realise it was maybe a bit too old for them." And I said, "Oh, well," I said, maybe there's something in that. Maybe wait until maybe they're a wee bit older. And they're like, "No, but I really liked it." Narratives and stories, our imagination is something that we can tap into very early on. And that's why I've always encouraged the kids in my life, I've always encouraged them to read. And although I was someone who probably didn't read that much myself, I do now. And I think a lot of the books that I read were very much about, I guess, not real life, but they weren't kind of fictitious, if you like. But some of the imaginative stories that you get now, with the journeys and the lands and, overcoming adversity, it can be really good a lot of messaging there, can't there, for kids? But even as adults, we can get very involved, and a lot of these books are very much for adults too, aren't they? So whether you're into, Star Wars, Star Trek, or whether you're into, the Potter stories, or whatever you're into, Tolstoy, anything, whatever you're into, we often will read or go to movies because we want our imagination sparked. We want to be able to escape into the world that often have been presented to us, and sometimes it's imagination and it's worlds that maybe we haven't thought up, maybe they've been thought up by the writer and the author. However, we can escape into, and we often will be very invested in the characters, in the journey, and what happens. And we're often looking for more. And that's a good indication of whether it's been successful in our mind, because we want to know more. We're left wanting to know more. We're wanting to have more information. And I wonder if you tell stories. I wonder if you use narratives in your life, whether you're recounting stories about what's happened in your past, or whether you tell stories to get across a point. Often, I remember when I was, in my teenagers, I was very young actually, it's probably just reached, my early teens. I don't know, maybe I was like 9 or 10, or maybe younger than that, right till maybe I was about 12 or 13, maybe 14, I can't remember, quite a few years. There was a gentleman that I, become quite friendly with. They had a dog, and I loved their dog. Their dog took to me, and when I went on holiday, I used to meet up with them because they were in the same place that we used to go on holiday every year. And every year, as I got older, I used to go, oh my goodness, you're getting so old, and I used to get to take their dog a walk. And I loved it because I didn't have a dog of my own, you see. I'd always wanted a dog. But, my parents used to tell me they'd enough with all of us without getting a dog. So that was a no, right? So I used to love going on holiday. And the gentleman, he used to sit and tell me lots of stories. And he used to tell me the stories and adventures of him and his dog, and the stories that the dog used to go on. And when I started going there, because I was very young when I started going there, probably I started going there, when I was about maybe 5 or 6, 7 or 8, I can't remember. Then as I got older and older and older, right, I kind of cottoned on that his stories were probably not really true, right? But he wrote a book of these stories, and I remember he gave me the book, right? And that probably was one of the first times, that I cottoned on to narratives and stories and how the power of the story. And that's where I'm really going with this. The power of the story. And when he wrote that book of the adventures of the dog, I've still got it, right? It was something that was very, I was very touched by. I remember, when he gave it to me, I was really quite, emotional about it, because by the time he gave it to me, I was maybe just 13, 14. So I really appreciated, the sentiment behind it. And he'd actually sat down and made, a story, journey and it was all about life lessons. And he'd actually sat and wrote this down to pass it forward to me. And I remember saying to him, I'll keep this, and I'll always think of you and think of your dog, right? And Skippy was the dog, right? And Skippy was also the name of the horse that lived across the road from me, right? Okay, so there was a theme there for me. And I used to go over and visit the horse. There's a farmer had a field across the road from us, who then sold the field, and they built houses there. That seems to be a lot of what happens now. But anyway, I used to live across, when my early childhood, I used to have a field, and the farmer had the field, and there was horses, and there was there was dogs, and the horse was called Skippy. And I used to get to go over and speak to and talk to the horse. And if I think back on those days, and I think about, how I used to get lots of stories, from people, and I don't know if people tend to do that now. I think probably a generational thing. A lot of people maybe, maybe in their 60s, or maybe their 70s, their 80s, they do still, in their 90s, they do still tell stories. But I wonder if we invest as much in telling these kind of stories, or writing these stories and passing these things on. Because whether it's sayings or phrases, out of sight, out of mind, or what's for you won't go by you, or, whether it's, giving, a kind of narrative, or writing things down through imagination, telling journeys and stories where there's morals or values. It's how we connect, and it's how we make sense of, from early childhood, right from babies, right through. That's why we have nursery rhymes. That's why, we tell nursery rhymes, we tell stories, we have lots of sayings, we have fables, we have things that Hans Christian Andersen fables, right? I mean, whether you're into these things or not, I agree with them, right? There are lots of things that we connect to, regardless of where we're from culturally. We connect to music, we connect to stories, we connect to narratives, we connect to rhythms, we connect to lots of different things that soothes us, that gives us understandings of how to connect back within ourselves, that gives us a way of connecting to others around us, that gives us a sense of belonging and being in touch with and healing. And healing. That's why when I work with people, I use lots of narratives, I use lots of, storytelling, I use lots of sayings, right? That people connect to, that understand and make sense of. And I say things in a way that's rhythmic, because it's soothing and it's healing, and because it's purposefully there. And encourage people to connect within themselves, to things that they can relate to. Music or dance or energy work, whatever they feel. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying that they do crystals, right? So finding what's the healing power within you is so important. And that's what it's all about. It's different for different people. It's different for ourselves, whether it's our faith, our spirituality, prayer, meditation, mindfulness. You need to do you. Do what works for you. Using silence as being healing and not seeing it as deafening. Yeah. The healing power within us and finding connectedness with using what works. And when I talk to you about and share with you the storytelling and the narratives and how I had people that throughout my childhood that talked and told stories, right? That I remember one of the first books that I was given that I really connected to was a fable story book, right? And I remember that I have a very strong connection to music and I have a very strong connection to narratives because of the kind of things that was shared with me when I was very young. And if you think about what you're connected to and what helps you grow and heal, it's really important to find that within you. Whether you're healing through an experience that you're being challenged with, or whether it's traumatic, it's important you find a way to be self-full, showing that love and that care and that compassion. Thanks for listening. And I wonder if having listened to this, it might maybe take you back to some of the storytelling and some of the things in a positive way that you've listened or heard. And that maybe you can see them and reframe them in a way that works for you. And maybe it might be that you might think back, maybe it's a neighbour, an auntie or a parent or someone that had a way with words and a way with storytelling. It might even have been someone in the media, right? I don't know, it could be anyone. But there's lots of sources and lots of things around us now. And it's really important that we learn and we absorb and we take in these things so that we can pass them forward and give them back within ourselves. Okay, thanks for listening. Hope you find this helpful. And until next time, I'm going to come on. Ideally, it will probably be on a Sunday, and I will be continuing to do my trainings and my webinars. And if you're interested in having me come along to talk, to speak, or do any trainings or any events, you know how to reach me. You can contact me on my website, www.stepupcmg.com, or you can drop me a DM on any of my platform profiles. Thanks again, take good care, have a great Sunday, bye for now.